welcome to Wild About Math with Kelly. This is 5.NBT.7 Divide Decimals Part 2. This is the box method that we learned how to do with long division when we were dividing whole numbers. Today we are dividing decimals. We're going to learn how to divide decimals using the box method. So take a look at number 1. We're going to do 4 problems today. Take a look at number 1. You have 28 and 8/10 divided by 1 and 2/10. It's easier to move the decimals while it's still written with the standard algorithm before you put it into the box method. So we're going to move the decimals while it's still in the standard algorithm. Whatever you do to the divisor, you have to do to the dividend. So taking a look at the divisor, you have the decimal, one space, you need to move it to make it a whole number, just like that. So if you move it one space over here in the divisor, then you need to move it one space over here in the dividend. And then you'll move it straight up. So that gives you 12. So I'm going to write 12 over here outside my box. And that gives you 288 for a whole number dividend. So I have in my box 288. At the end of 288, I'm going to put a decimal. And straight up from that in my quotient, I'm going to put a decimal as the end of my answer. Now we're ready to find the answer to this problem. So the first thing we ask ourselves, can 12 go into 2 evenly? And the answer is no. So put a 0 above that first box. Minus 0 is 2. Draw an arrow and put a 2 in front of that 8. 12 goes into 28 2 times. Put a 2 above that box. And 2 times 12 is 24. You're going to subtract 24 and get a 4. Draw a 4 above outside of that 8, and you've got a 48 now. 12 goes into 48 4 times. 12 times 4 is 48. And that's your answer. Your answer is 24 as a whole number. Let's try another one. This time, you have to move the decimal one space to make the 8/10 a whole number. You're timesing by 10. So we're going to times the dividend by 10, move it one space. Bring it up one spot. So over here, I'm going to put the decimal in between the 0 and the 7. In my dividend, I'm going to bring the decimal straight up in the quotient. Outside of the box, I'm going to write an 8 as a whole number, and I'm ready to divide. 8 cannot go into 0 evenly, so I'm going to put a 0 up above. Subtract 0 is 0. Bring that 0 in front of the 7. 8 cannot go into 7 evenly. Put a 0 up above. Subtract 0 is 7. Now you're going to take that 7 and put it in front of the 2. You've got 72. That's one of the multiples of 8. 8 times 9 is 72. So put a 9 up there in the quotient. 8 times 9 is 72. And you have your answer. It's 9/100. 9/100. All right, let's do another one. This time, in order to make that 4/100 a whole number, you've got to move the decimal 2 places. That means you've multiplied it times 100. Each time you move the decimal, you're multiplying it by 10. So you've moved the decimal 2 places, you've multiplied it by 10 and 10 again. If you do it 2 places in the divisor, you're going to do it 2 places in the dividend. What goes in that empty place? A 0. So now you have 680 as the dividend instead of 68. You're going to go straight up and put a decimal there in the quotient. Down in my box where you're going to do the solving, you're going to put a decimal after 680, and straight up in the quotient, you're going to put a decimal. You're going to put the number 4 outside the box for your divisor, and we're ready to divide. 4 can go into 6 one time, so put a 1 above the 6. 4 times 1 is 4. Subtract and you get 2. Draw an arrow and put the remainder outside the 8. You've got 28. 4 goes into 28 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Remainder of a 0. Put a 0 beside the 0. 4 goes into 0 0 times. Put a 0 above the 0. 0 times 4 is 0. Your answer, the quotient, is 170. We have one more to solve. Number 4, you're going to move that decimal 2 spaces. Make it a whole number. Whatever you do to the left, you're going to do to the right. We're going to move that decimal 2 spaces. That has an empty space there, so you're going to have to put a 0 in that empty space, making it 960. You bring the decimal straight up into the quotient. So now you have 32 for your divisor. You have 960 for your dividend. And you have a decimal straight up in the quotient. 32 cannot go into 9, so put a 0 above the 9. Subtract 0 is 9. Draw an arrow to the number next to it and add your 9. 32 goes into 96 3 times. 3 times 32 is 96. That worked out nicely. Remainder is 0. And 32 goes into 0 0 times.